Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today, we have a lot to get through. The biggest story in the NFL, Devante Adams, the star wide receiver, has requested a trade. We'll talk about potential landing spots, where he might end up, and what makes the most sense for teams to get him. That's our first segment. Later on in the show, we will cover MLB baseball, a great game right now going on between the Astros and the Tigers, an elimination game over there, as well as the other games from last night in both the NL and the AL, previewing the games happening today. Then turning our attention to college football. Conference realignment, the Heisman race, one of the closest ones in over 20 years. We'll break all of that down. Before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, October 2nd. But like I was saying, starting off our show today here in the NFL, Devante Adams, star wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders, has officially requested a trade after sitting out last week's game and a like tweet by head coach Antonio Pierce saying that Devante Adams might have played his last snap as an Oakland Raider. There's been a lot of turmoil in his whole in his whole Raiders saga, right? Signing with the Raiders originally to play with his college quarterback, Derek Carr. Derek Carr then gets cut one season after he signs. That's the only reason he left the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, was to play with his college quarterback. Derek Carr, now in New Orleans. Devante Adams had trade rumors circulating around him for the better part of 2 years at this point, whether that be rumors of reuniting him with his former NFL quarterback in Aaron Rodgers over there with the Jets after he signed over there, or whether that be new rumors of places he might go. There's been a lot of talk of where Devante Adams might end up, and I have a list of 4 places that I think would need him the most or would fit him the best. There's a lot of other places he could go, but off the top of my head, I think there are 4 places that fit his style, his need, and would work the best. Number 1, or we'll start at the bottom. We'll start at number 4 here. At number 4, most likely, I think, for places he's going to go, is the Kansas City Chiefs. And in most other circumstances, this would be the number 1 landing spot that I expect him to go to, right? The Chiefs in the last couple of seasons have made mid-season trades for receivers. This year, it's no different for their need at receiver. They went out and they signed Hollywood Brown. He's out for the season with his injury. Rashee Rice avoided a season-ending injury with his scary-looking knee injury last week, but still, he's going to be out for an extended period of time. The Kansas City Chiefs need a receiver, and they need a receiver pretty badly. The one issue, and I'm sure all of you are screaming at your screens right now, the biggest issue with the Kansas City Chiefs is that the Raiders are in their division. And it's going to take a lot to have an in-division trade for a player of his caliber. That's not something you see too often. It's not something I expect to happen. In any other circumstance, I think the Chiefs are a team that hop on this and pull the trigger and make this happen. Because adding Devante Adams to Mahomes' arsenal, I don't want to imagine how that would look like. That would be scary. And I still think it's a possibility. The Raiders are asking for a second-round pick. Plus, I think if the Chiefs give them a first-rounder and, say, a 4th, I think that might get this deal done. It's a high asking price, but it's in division. You're going to have to pay more. And if you outbid the competition enough, I think there's a chance they get this done. So I'm not counting this one out entirely, although it is a much smaller chance than I think a lot of these other options, these other three options that I have for Davante Adams landing spots. At number 3, we're going with the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, the connection is there. Davante Adams has named the New Orleans Saints as one of his higher ranked teams to go to. The connection, again, the reason that he decided to sign with the Raiders was because of Derek Carr. Derek Carr, obviously now quarterbacking down in New Orleans. They have a nice needed receiver. Chris Olave is a solid wide receiver 1. Rashid Shaheed is a good deep threat, but they don't really have that number 1 superstar receiver as much as people want to anoint Chris Olave. That they don't have that. That offense, when the run game isn't going, has been sputtering a little bit. Adding Devante Adams to infuse the offense that they've been missing for the last couple weeks would be huge for this Saints team. It would fit them. They have the money to do it, and it's a place that Davante Adams would like to go. The reason this one is at number 3 is because the Saints are a team that feel like they have the least amount of assets to move. They feel like they're the team that is stuck the most. And if I'm Davante Adams, leaving Las Vegas, and I had to choose between my 2 former quarterbacks, I'm leaning towards the team number 2 on my list, and that is the New York Jets. Obviously, this team was going to be on my list. Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, that's just a match that we've seen work amazingly in the past. Lots of memes saying, hey, Davante Adams is missing Aaron Rodgers is missing Davante Adams. Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback that loves certain receivers. Specific receivers. He's not a guy that can just plug and play with any receiver, and we're kind of seeing that with Garrett Wilson, although we thought that was going to work out a little better than it has. If you add Davante Adams in there, along with what Allen Lazard has been able to do recently, Lazard has been kind of been that wide receiver 1 over there. Mike Williams has been solid for them as well. You add Davante Adams into that mix, that Jets team hopefully fixes their offense. I don't know, that offense has been a mess, and I don't really know what's wrong with it because it seems like they've got everything they need. Great running backs, solid offensive line, but adding Davante Adams into that mix would be awesome. And again, they're not number 1 for a couple of reasons. First of all, the Jets front office already has made a mess of itself this offseason with the whole situation with pass rusher Hassan Reddick. This is not where you want to be as you get further on into the future, right? You get a really good wide receiver. He is 32, and he's higher up on the list. This fits their timeline, right? You don't want to go to a team like the Commanders, are one that I've heard a lot with rising star Jaden Daniels. The Commanders have the cap space to get it done. The Commanders have the assets to get it done. It just doesn't make sense. Not saying Davante Adams wouldn't be a great fit in Washington, but you take a situation like Washington and a situation like New York, a 32-year-old receiver coming in is only going to accelerate the timeline in Washington as opposed to letting it build itself up naturally. And with a team on the rise like Washington, you don't want to do that. The Jets, they're kind of all or nothing at this point. So I feel like they're willing to give up those assets. Same with the Saints, but I feel like the Saints are still holding out hope that they're not going to be all or nothing. And I think the Saints are further away from competing at this point. And that leaves the number 1 team. The number 1 team that I think Davante Adams should and will join is the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are the number 1 landing spot for me that I think Davante Adams will land at. First of all, it's a star player looking to get traded. That is music to Jerry Jones's ear. You're a big name, Jerry Jones wants you. It's generally how it works. That offense, outside of CeeDee Lamb, has literally nothing. They got nothing in the run game. That secondary receiver slot, wide open. Brandon Cooks has not been able to be that guy any kind of effectiveness that we kind of expect out of a guy like Brandon Cooks. He's hurt now. You don't have that second option at wide receiver. It's only CeeDee Lamb on offense. They need another weapon. They need another way to attack defenses because CeeDee, as good as he is, has not been able to do enough to get them to win these big games on his own. You add Davante Adams into that mix. They have the ability to make it work. They have the cap space to make it happen. They could do it right now. You add Davante into that mix. I mean, think about it. They've done something similar with Amari Cooper earlier on a couple of years ago. He's not a guy you have to commit long term to, just a couple of years. I know you've already signed just about everybody else. That money's already there. This is an all or nothing Cowboys team, the way that they're paying their players right now, and right now they're trending more towards nothing. They need to make a big move, and I think this is going to be it because that offense has a lot of holes, and I think this is the quickest and best way to fix it for them. There's not going to be another opportunity like this out on the market during the trade deadline. If the Cowboys want to be good, if they want to be competitive, I think they need to make this move. And I think that is what's going to happen. Now, the Raiders trade package, what they're asking for is a second round pick and compensation, as reported by some beat writers over there. So you're looking at giving up a late second round pick for these teams that supposedly are going to be competing for playoff spots, for deep playoff runs, back half of the second round right there, plus maybe you throw in a third or a fourth to get some kind of compensation. I think that's a deal. I think that's more than fair. I know that Devante Adams is a 32-year-old receiver, but you look at what he's able to do with bad quarterback play when he's out there on the field for the Raiders. It's 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 really good. He's still one of the best receivers in the league. He's still definitely a top 10 receiver in the league. You could probably still make the argument that he's top 5, but he hasn't been able to shine with his quarterback situation down there in Vegas. I think Cowboys are absolutely where he's going. I think his two best fits schematically are with the Chiefs and the Cowboys. And the other two are just because of his quarterbacks. Those are two of the teams he's requested, and clearly it's because of the quarterbacks. Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers. Those are the guys he's played with that he's comfortable with. He knows that he'll work well with. Those are my top 4 teams. There's a couple other names out there that I've heard. I heard the Bears. I don't think that makes any sense at all. There's no one. I mean, sure, he might be better than all 3 of those receivers, but they already have 3 receivers, the Bears do. Odunze, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. You're not going to pay a whole lot extra to get a wide receiver 4 at this point, right? He's not going to slot into wide receiver 4, but you don't need that many wide receivers unless you're planning on trading one yourself. I've heard the Washington Commanders. I already talked about why the Washington Commanders, in my opinion, aren't a good fit. It just doesn't fit their timeline very well. There's a lot of teams out there that could use wide receiver help, but I think the Cowboys are the one that are going to pull the trigger, make this deal happen, because Jerry Jones wants a winner. And if Jerry Jones wants a winner, this is how he's going to get it. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Where does Davante Adams end up? How much does it take to get him out of there? Does he get a new contract when he gets there? I don't think he gets one yet, but we'll see what happens. When we come back after this short break, we are going to delve into the playoffs. The MLB playoffs are in full swing. All 4 wildcard rounds played game 1 yesterday. Game 2 is already happening. A great game ongoing right now between the Tigers and the Astros. Elimination game for the Astros. We'll talk about all the AL games coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Everybody in the world, please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Everybody in the world, please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm in fake shit. Hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Amen. The top is so vacant. I'm in this shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crowd. Keeping my way in to be put down. Hitting your place, I'll hit my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the losing fit, the losing shit, the stupid myth. You choose to live, but choose to dip. You choose to fight, the losing grip, and losing gift. Oh. Feel like I'm losing my mind. Everybody in the world, please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. Feel like I'm losing my mind. Everybody in the world. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd. If you are just tuning in, we just went over potential landing spots for star Raiders wide receiver Devante Adams as he requested a trade earlier on this week. In this segment, we're turning our attention to baseball, the playoffs in full swing. It is October, it is their month. Wildcard games have started. Elimination games are underway. All of the best of three wildcard series had a game yesterday. They all play again today. We're going to take a look at the AL matchups currently going on right now, as well as breaking down what happened yesterday. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, October 2nd. But like I was saying, in this segment, we are taking a look at the AL side of the wild card games. And we're going to start off with the games yesterday before we get into the action currently taking place today. In the first game of the day, the Detroit Tigers, the hottest team in all of baseball, coming into this series, coming into the playoffs, kicked off with AL Cy Young presumptive winner, Tarik Skubal. Tarik Skubal absolutely dominates the Astros, winning final score 3-1. Skubal goes 6 scoreless innings, only allowing 4 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. That's the kind of performance that you get, that you wanted to get, you needed to get if you are the Detroit Tigers in a game that was crucial to win. The winner of game ones, and this is the important stat to remember for when we're talking about these wild card series, all 4 of them, the winner of game 1 wins 80% of the time. So the fact that the Detroit Tigers went into Minute Maid Park, a park that hosts a team that has played over 100 MLB playoff games since 2015. I need you guys to realize how ridiculous that is. They've reached the semifinals, the AL Championship Series in 7 straight seasons. That is ridiculous, what the Astros have been able to do. And the Tigers come in to their park, spit on the ground, and say, you know what? We're making our stamp. They take the former manager of the Houston Astros, A.J. Hinch, and they just demolish the Astros here. I won't say demolish. 3 runs is not the offensive output that you're looking for in a demolition, but that pitching was incredible. Tarik Skubal is really the headliner pitcher for the Tigers. Outside of that, they don't really have much as far as starting pitching goes. The plan for this series was Tarik Skubal game 1, chaos for the next 2. And chaos it has been, and we'll get to that in just a second. But Tarik Skubal was awesome. I don't want to understate that. He set the Tigers up in their first playoff game since 2014. 10 years since the Tigers have been in the playoffs. He set them up on the potential to sweep the Astros, something that no one has done since the World Series in 2005. 2005. It's been 20 years since the Astros were swept in a playoff series. And the Tigers have the opportunity to do that. It's currently the 9th inning. But this game, 3-1, all flowers go to Skubal. Spencer Torkelson made a great play to save this game. Astros down 3 in the bottom of the 9th. They get the bases juiced there. Score a run. Runners on second and third. A line drive with 2 outs hit right at Spencer Torkelson from Jason Hayward. He's able to snag it to end the game. That was one of the best games of the playoffs right there. A huge win for a young Tigers team. They get their confidence up heading into game 2 that is going on right now. Currently the top of the 9th there, and they're winning. But before we get into that, I want to give it an opportunity to finish. We're going to talk about the other AL game that took place yesterday between the Royals and the Orioles. This was a pure pitching matchup. you know anything about me, about how I like baseball, I love me a good pitcher's duel, and this was one of the best that we have seen in a very long time. Cole Reagans, pitcher for the Kansas City Royals, goes 6 scoreless innings. Corbin Burns, pitcher for the O's, 8 scoreless innings. Pitches into the ninth. Doesn't get a complete game. Gives up a single there, but not scoreless. Gives up 1 run. 8 innings of 1-run ball is insane. That is 1-0 for your starters, and that's how the game ends. Just one single. Bobby Witt Jr. comes through with a 2-out single after a couple of stolen bases move the runner up to third. This is going to be that kind of series. It's going to be a low-scoring, grinded-out kind of series because that's just the way that both of these ball clubs are built. Strong pitching, stronger on the Kansas City side. I know we talked about that. This was, again, a very important game one to win. We talked about that 80% number. Cole Reagans, if you're able to get, for the Royals, if you're able to get past Corbin Burns, like they have been able to do now, it's a big drop-off for the rest of that Orioles rotation. For the Orioles, you still have to get through a couple of really, really good pitchers that the Royals have. They don't have that same drop-off that the Orioles do. For the Royals, you get Seth Lugo today, a guy who really has been one of the better players on their team, right? The pitching has really powered them to this season, a team that lost over 100 games last year. But getting to today's games, because awesome performance by both of those teams. A lot of those pitchers. It was a day for pitchers in the AL. They all were incredible. But the game that's currently going on in the ninth, on the brink of elimination, it's the Houston Astros. A 0-0 game heading into the 6th inning. Detroit hits a solo home run basically to end the day of Hunter Brown, the pitcher for the Astros, who grew up a Tigers fan, pitched an incredible game, 99 pitches, 1 earned, and then the bullpen comes in, gets him out of that inning. In the bottom of the 7th, bases get loaded on Jackson Jobe, the 22-year-old rookie, the number 2 prospect in all of baseball right now. 22 years old, has only played 2 games, was called up the week before the playoffs, has only ever played 2 games, pitched 4 innings, comes in, and the moment was a little too big for him. You can't blame him. This kid, this is his 3rd appearance in the MLB. 3rd appearance ever in his career, and it's a playoff massive moment on the road. Up 1. That's a lot of faith to have in your young pitcher, and that's really cool to see by A.J. Hinch. He said chaos. It certainly has been chaos today. You take a look at those pitching numbers. They've had no pitcher go more than 1 2/3 innings. No pitcher go more than 1 2/3. They take a 3-run lead currently into the bottom of the 9th, the same thing that they did heading into the bottom of the 9th in yesterday's game. We'll see if they can hold it, but you take a look at that pitching performance. Jackson Jobe is the one that ends up surrendering the lead. Jackson Jobe gives up 2 runs, 1 on a sac fly, aggressive base running by the Houston Astros. He gets taken out, double play is in order, gets them out of that inning. Then they come back in the top of the 8th. A wild pitch after a couple of singles in a row scores the first run to tie the game, and then a double, scoring 3 runs, a 3-run bases clearing double. Massive, massive moment for this young Detroit Tigers team. This is exactly what you look for. They're the hottest team in baseball right now, and that is the most dangerous thing when we talk about a team. Experience matters, yes, but if you're hot, you're hot. And that is something that you just can't replicate. And that's what the Tigers are right now. Heading to the bottom of the 9th, we'll see if they can close out the Astros. The Astros, heavy favorites, a team that a lot of people expected to go far. I know I picked them to make it all the way to the World Series. This is going to be a tough finish. We'll see. I'll keep you updated on that. The other AL game going on right now, the Royals up a familiar 1-0 heading into the bottom of the 3rd. Zach Eflin on the mound for the Baltimore Orioles, a guy that's been really good since coming over from the Rays. Currently down 1-0, bottom of the 3rd. This game is not over. Still a lot of ways to go. I'll keep you updated on all of that. But the AL has been we're in the chance. We have the chance to see two upsets out of the both of these games in the NL. The team that wasn't at home, the wild card team, the team that came out of the AL Central, the team that people said were going to be weak because they had to play. The only reason they got in was because they played the White Sox 13 times each, right? Because they played the White Sox 26 times. They're out there winning. They're showing they belong. This playoff field is wide open. We said that at the beginning, and this is just proving it. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll keep you updated on all of these scores, and we're going to take a look at the NL matchups between the Mets and the Brewers, the Braves, and the Padres. Stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube, absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd. If you were just tuning in, we just went over the first half of the wild card matchups, taking a look at the AL matchups so far. In this segment, we're going to take a look at the NL matchups that took place last night, as well as predicting the next games coming up later on tonight. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments, throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, October 2nd. But like I was saying, we're going to take a look at the NL side of things here. The MLB Wildcard NL review. 2 more games. The first 2 were both upsets. The next one between the Mets and the Brewers, why not make it a third in a row? The Mets coming off of an emotional win, a crazy win to send them to the playoffs on Monday. No rest day for these guys in Atlanta. Fly halfway across the country, meet them up in Milwaukee. This is crazy. The Mets play with so much effort. They win 8-4. Freddie Peralta pitches a really good game. Freddie Peralta, the pitcher for the Brewers, it might not look like it giving up that many runs, but still, the Mets are as hot as anyone. Again, we talked about it with the Tigers. The Mets are a very, very good baseball team. All of these teams are. There's not a clear, winner as far as who's going to be the clear favorite. A lot of these wild card teams are just as good, if not better, than a lot of these teams that are hosting. The Brewers, their main thing, and really for the last couple years, is they've been unable to step up to the moment in the playoffs. A lot of that's been put on their offense. The offense is a lot better this year. You see that. They're able to put up a little bit of runs. They had Corbin Burns. They had Brandon Woodruff. They had these elite pitchers that were able to push them over the edge. And real quick, before we continue, a final update. The Tigers have officially advanced, beating the Houston Astros 5-2, sweeping them on their home turf. That is insane. Congratulations to the Tigers. Congratulations to AJ Hinch. What a huge matchup there. But getting back to the NL, the Mets just played with more effort. They played like they wanted it more. And I mean, look, The Brewers have lost 11 of their last 12 playoff matchups. The Brewers have lost all 4 of their last playoff matchups by at least 2 runs. They have not been super competitive in the playoffs, and I'm not super convinced that in today's game, they're going to be able to turn that around. This pitching isn't as good as it has been in the past. And yes, the offense is better. And yes, there's things that you look at and say, hey, this is a Brewers team that should be better this year, should have a shot in the playoffs. They did everything right in the regular season. They just didn't make mistakes. And yet they're making those same mistakes. Pitchers aren't running to cover the bag. Players are undercutting routes to go catch a baseball, leading to a triple in the outfield. These are blunders that this defense doesn't usually make, and when the moment is big, they're shriveling up instead of rising to it. And until that changes, until I see something that makes me go, "Yep, that is going to be that's a Milwaukee Brewers team that I think can do something in the postseason." And they haven't proven that to me. Until they can prove that to me, I'm going to continue to pick against them. This is a Brewers team that I think, yes, is very talented. I think is better than it has been in the past couple of years. But it's the same old Brewers. Maybe that trend changes, but I think the Mets sweep them tonight. The other series, the Braves travel actually across the country to take on the Padres, and we're 3 for 3 on upsets so far. The Padres trying to hold out, be the only home favorite to win, and they do that. They do that with a bang. They demoralize this Braves team. Michael King comes over in the trade where the Padres sent Juan Soto to the Yankees. 7 innings, no walks, 12 strikeouts, no runs. Absolutely dominant effort. The Padres shut out the Braves 4-0. Starts in the first inning with a absolute mammoth blast by Fernando Tatis into the second deck. A no-doubter off the bat, and that's all they needed. A 2-run shot. Kyle Higashioka adds a sac fly and a home run to increase the lead later on in the game. The Braves just didn't have it. The Braves spent it all and in that pseudo playoff matchup with the Mets, able to claim a playoff spot, kicking out the Diamondbacks. But the Braves having to travel across the country with literally no rest days is not easy to do. You don't have your best pitcher in Chris Sale, and when you take a look at the matchup tonight, it's not going to be very different. It just doesn't feel like it's going to be. The pitching matchup tonight, we're looking at Max Fried taking on Joe Musgrove. Again, winner of these first games wins 80% of the time, and I think we're going to get a whole bunch of sweeps here. The 2 series that I thought were going to go 3 games, they were both in the AL. One of those has just ended in 2, and not the way that I predicted it was going to. The San Diego Padres here have a chance to shut them down. The Padres are built for the playoffs right now. They are a team that's built to take on the next opponent that they face if they are to win, and that is the Dodgers. The Braves are just too broken, too injured to continue. I give them props for making it this far with how injured and how unlucky they've been with injuries all season long. But at some point, it's just too much. You lose your potential Cy Young winning pitcher, and I think that was the only edge you had. Your bats too hurt to keep going against a really good Padres rotation. Michael King starts that first game. You have Joe Musgrove. Yu Darvish coming back has been pretty solid. This is a really, really good San Diego Padres team that just continues to get healthy, has a Rookie of the Year candidate as well, and Fernando Tatis hits a massive home run. It's just not fair. I don't think the Braves really stood a chance in this one with where they were limping into it, and I think it's going to come crashing down pretty quickly. But let me know what you think. The Braves got outmatched. The Brewers just didn't have the energy they needed, and the Tigers advance. Look at that. Congratulations to the Tigers. This is going to be a fun postseason if that's how it starts. I cannot wait to see how it ends. I'll keep you updated on everything as we continue to cover it. But we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to shift gears over to college football. There's a bunch going on over there. There's some conference realignment stuff, Heisman Trophy stuff going on. One of the craziest Heisman races in the last 20 years, in the entire 2000s, the whole millennia here. We'll take a look at that coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd. If you are just tuning in, we've just gone through the baseball updates as the wild card round continues to carry on. The Tigers advancing, the first team to advance. They take on the Cleveland Guardians in the next round. Very excited for that matchup as well. We'll see if the Tigers can continue being as hot as anyone else in the entire league. In this segment, though, we're turning our attention to college football. We're taking a look at the Heisman race, a Heisman race that has not been this close since the 1999 race. We have 4 candidates that I think are very qualified to get it. We're going to break down where everyone is, who I think is in charge right now, and what it looks like for the future of college football. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, October 2nd. But like I was saying, we're going to get into some college football talk here. The season is heating up. We're about halfway through the year at this point. Crazy how fast it has already gone. But the Heisman race is where we are going to take our focus to. The Heisman, the MVP of college football, the most valuable player, the best player in the sport, is currently, in my opinion, a 3-horse race, 4-horse race. The media is out there at a 4-horse race, so we'll keep it at that 4-horse race. Consisting of 2 quarterbacks in an award that's been dominated by quarterbacks, a running back, an award that used to be dominated by running backs. A running back has not won since 2015 when Derrick Henry did it, though. And, of course, Travis Hunter. 2-way player, defensive back, wide receiver, likens back to 1999. And that crazy Heisman race where Charles Woodson was able to come out, and be part of that Heisman race as well. Kind of a 2-way, not really the same. But we'll start over there with Travis Hunter. He is a guy that is unbelievably talented. What he's able to do on the football field is insane. Being able to play both ways takes a huge toll on your body. His motor is insane. Being able to play corner and receiver, 2 of the most brutal positions in terms of energy output on an entire football field. He goes out there, he dominates. He's not just going out there as a gimmick. He's going out there because he's really, really good at it. There's a debate. He's so good at it. There's a debate of whether or not he could do it in the NFL. That is a lot harder to do at the NFL level, but I mean, if you don't let him try, you'll never know. The debate also is where he should go at the NFL level, offense or defense. At wide receiver, he makes tons of highlight reel catches, and I think his ability to play wide receiver really helps as a corner. First of all, obviously, helps with ball hawking, helps him intercept passes that most other DBs would not be able to get. That's already a big plus right there. Getting those turnovers, even if you get cooked a little bit, is probably worth it. But he doesn't get cooked that much. He doesn't let up those long plays. He is a really good cover corner, and that's another quality of his that I think helps a lot because of his understanding of wide receivers. He understands route concepts, and of course, all great cornerbacks understand route concepts, but his ability to read the quarterback, read the field from both sides, helps him get open and helps him stop players from getting open because he can see their moves He can predict what they're doing better than just about anybody else in all of college football can. And he's doing both sides at a very high level. He is a Heisman candidate. He is up there. The other three. We'll hit the quarterback. We'll hit a quarterback next. Cam Ward, quarterback of Miami. He transfers in there from Washington State, and Miami has been awesome. A top 6 team in the nation. Continues to win games. He has not made those mistakes that we're looking at them making, that he made a couple times when he was at Wazoo, right? Cam Ward has led this team confidently, and that's kind of the best way to describe his play. You could say nonchalant, but it's confidence right there. He trusts his offensive line. He trusts his ability to get the ball out, and it has worked wonders for them. This is a Miami team that has shown only one sign of weakness. That was against a Virginia Tech team last week, but it was able to lead a comeback, able to clean up those mistakes of his, get out with a victory in a tough game against a good Virginia Tech team. They've been a little disappointing, but they're still a good Virginia Tech team. Cam Ward, very good quarterback. I think he's the best quarterback in the nation right now, aside from maybe the other Heisman potential quarterback in Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe, the quarterback for Alabama. Alabama just comes off a massive win against Georgia. Jalen Milroe in that game combines for 417 yards of offense just from him. Obviously, a lot of that through the air, but on the ground, he's one of those crazy dual threat quarterbacks. What he's able to do with his legs, it makes it really, really hard to defend him. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the nation by a very large margin. Jalen Milroe and that Alabama team continue to dominate. He's in conversations for that Heisman yet again. He was in the talks a little bit last year, but he's made a huge step from last year to this year, and it's very noticeable. This is a better Alabama team when he is playing as good as he is, and this is a better Alabama team than last year when they made it to the 4-team college football playoff. Obviously, we see that from them beating Georgia the way that they did in that game. And of course, the final, I said there were 4. The last one, the running back, Ashton Jeanty. He is my current favorite for Heisman. I think as the rankings go, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty at number 1. He has been insane. He is on pace currently to go for 2,700 yards and 43 touchdowns. That's not normal numbers. Those would shatter every single running back number ever. You take a look at what he's able to do week in and week out. The sports books, I hate to get betting involved in this, but the line for him to score 3 touchdowns in a game is minus 155. That's better. That's worse odds for you for him to score 3 touchdowns than most people to score 1. That is insane for that to be a line there. It is incredibly, incredibly impressive to see what he's been able to do at a small school. And the fact that he's still in conversation at a group of 5 school proves just how good he's been. As much as we like to say this is a fair award, as much as we like to say this isn't a quarterback award, it is, and it isn't, right? Obviously, the more media attention you get, the more likely voters are going to vote for you. That's just how it goes. Your name is out there. You're going to get more highlights. You're going to be more likely to win the award. Ashton Jeanty, and I think this really is a cool thing coming out of that 12-team playoff. Now we need to pay attention to these really good group of 5 schools. We see these really good group of 5 schools and these really good group of 5 players that get a chance to introduce themselves to the world, introduce themselves to the national media. Guys like Ashton Jeanty, guys like Alonzo Barnett III, who have just exploded offensively, been incredible players to watch all season long. And a guy that's, if he continues his pace, again, that's a big if, running for almost 170 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns a game is not a pace that you expect a guy to continue. But if he's able to continue that pace, he's going to shatter records. Shatter records a lot of people thought were unbreakable. Barry Sanders' records. It's ridiculous what he's been able to do on a football field, and it's really cool that we get to highlight these group of 5 players, these group of 5 teams. And I think that's an awesome thing to come out of the 12-team playoff. I hope in 2 years when they readjust it, because they're going to readjust it, I hope they don't get rid of that group of 5 slot, because this is a really cool thing. And I'm very happy that it's there. Maybe it won't put all 12 of the best teams in there, but you get 11 of them and an extra attention on these schools that should get more attention from the national media. I think that's a trade-off that's worth it for a 12 seed. Otherwise, that probably wouldn't do much better than the best group of 5 team in the country, if I'm being honest with you. But let me know what you think. I think Ashton Genty is currently my Heisman favorite. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I think it's going to be awesome. This is the most wide open race we've had in forever, and as long as I can remember, since 1999. I'm very, very excited to see how this goes. But like I said, let me know what you think. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to end off our show talking all about conference realignment. Some more news coming out of teams like Texas State, Gonzaga, Sacramento State, and more. We'll talk about what's coming up with them, with the Pac-12, with the Mountain West. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the Heisman odds, who I think should win the Heisman, and what the 4-horse race is currently looking like, and what the main suspects are. In this segment, we're going to finish off our show with more college football, talking about a little bit of conference realignment, the biggest story coming out of college sports in as long as I can remember, shaking up the entire foundation of it, killing conferences, creating new conferences, creating super conferences. That whole conversation is wild to me. So we're going to talk about some more news coming out of a couple of schools with the Mountain West and the Pac-12. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you have to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, October 2nd. But like I was saying, finishing off our show today with a little more college football. Realignment updates here. Maybe college football is the wrong way to put it. College sports here, because this is broader than college football. Gonzaga, basketball powerhouse of the West Coast Conference, officially joining the Pac-12, making it a full conference, 8 teams. Congratulations, the Pac-12 has officially made it back from the dead. Not an easy thing to do. We thought they were cooked. I thought they were just going to integrate into the Mountain West. I think the Mountain West, if they aren't able to get a 7th team, which it looks like, if they're not able to get an 8th team, which looks like they're in danger of doing, might have stabbed themselves in the back by not accepting the terms of adding Wazoo and Oregon State. That is not a good look for the head of that organization, because they have just severely crippled their own conference, even if they are able to survive. The Mountain West here also has some news, and it's not positive. Gonzaga, first of all, before we move on, moving in was a team that was looking to move up out of the West Coast, out of the WCC, out of the West Coast Conference. Talks were for them to join the Big 12. That stalled out because they don't have a football team currently. So this is going to be a huge move for the basketball side of the new Pac-12. Of the 8 teams, Utah State, Oregon State, San Diego State, Washington State, Gonzaga, Fresno State, so on and so forth. These teams have a lot of really good basketball programs. Basketball programs that have made tournament runs, deep tournament runs in the last couple of years, at least made the tourney. With the West Coast Conference, there were never enough teams, and Gonzaga was always yelled at for playing soft schedules. It's not their fault. They play good schedules. San Francisco has made the tournament a couple times in a row. St. Mary's has made the tournament a couple times in a row. The Grand Canyon made a big run. It's not like the West Coast Conference is necessarily a bad conference when it comes to basketball, but this Pac-12 conference is going to, again, branding, big thing in college sports. Branding is huge. You add Gonzaga, they automatically take a step up, and maybe this is the boost they needed to actually win that national championship, something they've been so close to doing for so long, just unable to win those final couple of games. Maybe this is the boost they needed in recruiting, in funding, in whatever, in respect maybe, to get them over the hump. But this is huge for the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is back. They have 8 teams. They have what they need. They're still looking for more. They'd like to be a full football conference as opposed to just basketball conference. So they still need a couple more teams, one with a football team at least, before they are back. But still a huge get for the Pac-12 as the realignment train continues to chug along. Texas State, a team that was hot in conversations with the Mountain West. The current Sun Belt team, top of the Sun Belt in football, solid in a lot of sports, not really the greatest in terms of athletics, but solid all around, was looking at joining the Mountain West, has officially said no. They are not leaving the Sun Belt. I think that's a good move for them. I think the Sun Belt is a better conference than the Mountain West. I think the Mountain West, especially as it is now with its top teams being poached, is not nearly the same as the Sun Belt, a conference that is solid in basketball, really good in baseball. Football, I think it's pretty solid, and these are all sports, that the Sun Belt, I think, is better or comparable to the Mountain West and it just wouldn't make a lot of sense for Texas State, aside from a little bit geographically, to move over. It just never made a lot of sense for them to do it. They aren't going to. They're coming back to the Sun Belt. That's big for the Sun Belt, big for Texas State. It sucks for the Mountain West. They're still looking for their next team, and their next team might have to come from the FCS, if that's how we're looking at it. Again, still looking for more. Sacramento State is a team that desperately wants to move up to the FBS. So desperately, in fact, that their fans raised $35 million in an NIL collective to prove that they would be a worthy FBS team. I haven't heard much buzz outside of that, but Sacramento State looking to revamp their stadium. They obviously have the backers. If they're able to raise $35 million in such a short time, they want to join the Pac-12 bad. I'm sure they would settle for the Mountain West, but they want that Pac-12, and I think it would be smart for a team to grab them. If the Pac-12, I think they could get them for cheap as far as negotiation goes because of how desperate they are, and they want to move up pretty badly. They're not necessarily a bad team. They're solid. They're not great. They're not going to be an elite FBS team. It'll take time for them to build up, but they're a team that I think won't be the worst if a team needs one pretty badly, and both of these schools, or the Mountain West really does, need a new school badly. They're only at 7 now. Pac-12 could use one. I think that's the next one that's going to go. Texas State was in conversations. Rice and UTSA, I don't think they're going to move after Texas State says no, because I feel like you'd need more than just the one Texas school to move over. Maybe you're able to get a school like Hawaii, an independent school, although that would be kind of tough. Maybe you get, I don't know, one of the New Mexico or New Mexico State to come over. it's not going to be easy as far as realignment. The Mountain West has put itself in a really bad spot, and I think they're going to have to pick a team like a Sacramento State moving up to the FBS from the FCS. I don't think another FBS team is going to transfer to the Mountain West as unless they're independent. And even then, I wouldn't do it because I think that Mountain West has just gotten severely weaker. Where they stand, it's just not going to be worth it for a team to move in there. So I think they're going to need, if they want to continue to survive, they're going to need to go out and grab an FCS team. I still think the Pac-12 could recruit a team from the FBS. Again, Hawaii is an option. That's an independent school. I've heard whisperings about it. It's a little tough because Hawaii is so far away. But, I wouldn't be shocked if that's the next team that joins. But Gonzaga, officially a member of the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is back at a minimum for basketball. Football, they still need another school. I'm sure they'll get it done. Let me know who you think it's going to be. I'd love to hear your thoughts. My bets are on Sacramento State just because of how fast they were able to get that funding up. And I think at this point, they're kind of out of options for the FBS unless UNLV decides to join, which is still a real possibility. But like I said, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and anything else that we talked about here in today's show. Tune back in on Friday. We will be doing our game picks. We will be going over Thursday night football. We will be going over everything that happened in the world of sports, NFL picks, NCAA football picks, and much more. So tune back in for that. You all have a good one. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Then tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great.